Hey everyone, Lisa Salvatore here today to talk about the conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune that will occur in the sign of Pisces. This conjunction will occur on April the 12th at 23 degrees and 59 minutes of the water sign of Pisces. Now, there's a lot of reasons that this is being talked about as being a very blessed time and being a beautiful conjunction, and it has a lot of really positive energy to it. There's also, of course, always the shadow side, but for all intents and purposes, we are going to focus on the beautiful energy that surrounds this Jupiter and Neptune conjunction and what makes it so rare, and also what makes it so special for each of us individually, and how this conjunction can touch our own lives and can touch our own charts, therefore touch our own hearts, right? And this could be where we could see a little bit of extra dose of protection, spiritual blessings, maybe even some magic, because Pisces is the sign of the mystic and of the magical and the divine. So let's just jump right into it. Back in December, I recorded a video about Jupiter's entrance into the sign of Pisces and its transit there. And you can always go back and listen to that one. It's linked below, the Jupiter transit through Pisces. And it's important to note that Jupiter will spend about 1 year in each zodiac sign. So it takes Jupiter about 12 years to go through each sign of the zodiac. And so every 12 years, we will each have what we call our Jupiter return, where Jupiter goes back to where it was at the time of our birth. Now, Jupiter is a social planet, so it's not an inner planet and it's not an outer planet like Neptune, but it's a social planet. So its tone is more driven towards collective energy, but yet it does affect us individually by where it is in our birth chart. It will show up and show us a place where we can have an extra dose of spiritual protection, blessings, a little bit of an easier time. And then, of course, depending on how Jupiter is aspected by other planets, that's going to mitigate these effects or enhance them. Again, that's personal for everybody. But we all have a Jupiter. Jupiter is a social planet. Jupiter is actually the bridge between the inner planets, which are Venus, Mars, Mercury, Sun and the Moon are not planets, but we count them as the inners. And then the outer planets, which are Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And so Jupiter and Saturn are the social planets. So they're like the bridge between the inner planets and the outer planets. So their function is very significant in our lives, both collectively, even more so, and then personally. Okay, so that's Jupiter. Now Neptune has got a much longer orbit, okay? Neptune spends about 14 years approximately in one sign. It can spend 14 years in one sign. And it takes Neptune about 165 years to make a full orbit, okay? So that makes the alignment of Jupiter and Neptune quite uncommon. But Jupiter and Neptune do meet up every 13 years or so. The last time Jupiter and Neptune met up, it was in 2009 in Aquarius. They met up at 18 degrees of Aquarius. So now here we are, it's 2022, and Jupiter and Neptune are aligning again. So we could say that it's not all that rare. However, Jupiter and Neptune have not lined up in Pisces since 1856. So none of us have ever seen this alignment before, and none of us will ever see it again, right? Because the next one won't be until 2088. So this is a big deal, and not just because Jupiter and Neptune are lining up, or even lining up in Pisces, but Pisces is the sign that both Jupiter and Neptune rule over, okay? Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, and Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces. But Jupiter is still Jupiter is still the ruler of Pisces. So both Jupiter and Neptune are in their preferred place, okay? And what does Pisces represent? Well, Pisces is the sign of the mystic. It is by far the most intuitive, psychic sign of the zodiac. There's quite a bit of divine energy attached to Pisces. There's this interconnectedness. There's a feeling of we are one. The collective comes together under Pisces energy. There's more compassion, there's more empathy. We even can go into the arts because this is what Pisces and Neptune rule over, and Jupiter comes in to expand everything, okay? And so there can be a lot of beautiful happenings that occur under this Jupiter and Neptune conjunction in Pisces. But it's not just a one-hit wonder, right? This transit has been being felt for quite some time, for quite a few months. It's been operational, and we're going to feel it after it takes the exact hit on April 12th. So we're going to feel this for quite some time. So it's not going to be like something dramatic happens in your life. It certainly can, of course, but that's not really the energy of this conjunction. It's more subtle because we're dealing with Neptune, which is an outer planet that moves really very slowly, and we're dealing with Jupiter, which wants to make things bigger and wants to reveal things and wants to show us the way. And in Pisces together, they truly seek to bring us forth towards more beauty in this life, in this reality. There's a very spiritual component to this energy. And I don't think any of us can disagree with the fact that the collective is experiencing a huge mass spiritual awakening and has been for quite some time. And particularly since 2020, when everything was basically shut down, I think that was enhanced way more. And then furthering that, the collective energy, people are truly, since the equinox even, equinoxes and solstices always bring in strong energetic downloads of light into the physical body. And we do feel that. On top of that, we've been experiencing a lot of solar flares, okay, which is basically a disruption from the, think about the sun like burping it's from the surface. There's a whole scientific component to the solar flares, but I will tell you from the spiritual perspective that our physical bodies definitely feel this energy, and we will experience things such as strong ringing of the ears, psychic abilities being extremely enhanced or just popping out altogether, just digestive trouble, heart palpitations, headaches, migraines, sleeping disturbances, night sweats. There's all kinds of things that come up under this awakening energy. But it's always important to remember to not chalk this up to the spiritual awakening process, because a lot of these things mimic a medical condition. So again, always be smart, get everything checked out. Provided that you have a clean bill of health, you may just be experiencing very strong symptoms of a spiritual awakening. Again, I wrote a very detailed blog post about the ascension process. I wrote this many years ago, and it's by far the most coveted blog post on my blog. So if you want to check that out, I've also linked it below. But in there, I go through all of this energetic stuff, all of these energetic happenings that you may be experiencing. But we are all experiencing this collective mass awakening. And remember, we are all connected and we all feed off of each other. And that's furthering this Jupiter and Neptune alignment, because that is what Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces seek to do. They seek to bring us all together. They seek to bring the people as one. And the song that always runs through my head when I think about this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is Michael Jackson's song, You Are Not Alone. And the true coincidence of that, and it's not really a coincidence, but I have had that song in my head for months, especially when it comes to this Jupiter and Neptune alignment. And I will tell you, I have never looked at Michael Jackson's natal chart. I've never looked at his birth chart until 3 weeks ago. And guess what Michael Jackson has in his birth chart? He has a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Scorpio in his 8th house. Basically, what that means is that Michael was a very sensitive, compassionate, creative, because Neptune's also music, right? And Pisces is the arts, creative. But yet, Michael also displayed the shadowy traits of that Neptunian energy, and Jupiter blew that up. And, again, he had things that we all know that went on in his life where he could be delusional in some instances, having trouble with narcotics, substances, altered states of consciousness that he would put himself in. Now that's all Neptune, right? And Jupiter blowing it up. So this Jupiter-Neptune alignment can also serve to blow up that wanting to be in altered states of consciousness. Meaning, if somebody has a substance abuse problem with this Jupiter and Neptune alignment kicking in, and it's been this way for some months now, and I've seen this with people that I know that have struggled to get sober, and they were doing really well, and then all of a sudden this tsunami of spiritual Jupiter's Neptune energy has come in, and they're like, why do I feel like I'm off balance? Why am I going back to that place? And I'm not saying that the planets are responsible. I'm just saying they can shed some light onto what we are experiencing collectively, both for the better and then of course on the shadow side. So again, positively, let's go back to the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, the last one that we had in 1856. So on the positive side, the spiritualist movement was ginormous at that time. That's when we saw, well, we weren't here, but that is when the collective experienced a huge spiritual transformation, and seances became very popular, things such as Ouija boards. People were doing things to bring in that psychic energy. The afterlife became very pronounced, the science behind it. Everybody wanted a piece of that pie, a piece of that puzzle, a piece of that spiritual juice, because it gave them something to believe in beyond the physical. And that is Pisces. There is more than what we see in this life. The divine, the God love, everything. We're all connected, and we're connected to something much greater than what we see here in the physicality of ourselves. And that back in 1856 was a huge time for the spiritualist movement. Again, seances, psychic energy, all things of that nature. Now, I do believe we're going to see a huge uptick in that right now as well. We already are seeing that. People are flocking to the more spiritual side of life to look for meaning, to look for answers. And I think that that's really beautiful. The shadow side to that is we can succumb to spiritual bypassing. And that is something we really want to watch out for under this energy. And we want to watch out for the gurus in our lives, the people that we go to for guidance and help and advice. We want to make sure that we do our homework, that we do our due diligence, that we jive and connect with those that are helping us to connect, right? And that the motives are pure, because not everybody's motives are pure. We know that. And that's the shadowy side of Neptune. It can make us gloss over the fine print and see what we want to see the best in everyone and everything. And that can be beautiful, but that can also be deceitful. And that can really take us down a dark hole. And so we want to watch out for that. And we also want to watch out for spiritual bypassing, meaning we don't want to use spiritual stuff, to cover the fact that we might have some wounding that we need to heal. And again, I wrote another post, now that I think about it, on spiritual bypassing some time ago. I will link that in the description box below, because that was a good post and I go much more into detail there. But we want to watch out for that. We want to watch the people that we're surrounding ourselves with and connecting to, especially when it comes to psychic energy, spiritual work, anything that deals with altered states of consciousness, whether they're going into that space to give you information, you're going into that space to receive the information, I don't know. But we really want to protect ourselves too, and just be more mindful and more conscious, which is another Jupiter and Neptune theme and word here with Pisces. Also back in 1856, we saw a huge, I keep saying we, like we were here, but there was a huge increase in photography and cinematography and color. And again, we may see more happenings there in that department. Music is a big one when we're dealing with Neptune and Pisces, the arts. And, Jupiter again here will serve to blow this up and bring things better and bigger and higher. And so we are going to probably see a lot more coming to us, at us in this arena. Neptune's also linked to the media. So not only film and photography, but also to the media. Now, Neptune's also linked to pollution. It's linked to toxicity, toxins. It's linked to drugs. It's linked to escapism. It's linked to illusion and paranoia and deceit. It's also linked to oil and fuel. Now, Jupiter serves to expand this energy and bring things out into the open, to reveal things. But let's err on the side of optimism, which is a huge Jupiter word, that we will have mostly optimistic happenings through this Jupiter and Neptune conjunction. But we do want to watch for the ways in which the vices that we use, the ways in which we go to escape from things that bother us or that can make us forget reality for a moment. And, we really want to watch out for that, because that can be the shadowy stuff to Neptune, and also the toxicity portion, because again, drugs are toxins, right? They're ruled over by Neptune. Toxins are ruled over by Neptune. So we want to watch I always say, the physical body, the vessel. We want to be careful about what we're putting in there, because again, we're dealing with water energy, right? And so fluid in the body, we want to be careful with all of that. Jupiter also governs over our liver. So, Neptune can be too much of something, too much of a substance that you're putting into your body. So again, just watching out for all of that. Now remember, Pisces is the sign of the mystic and is very spiritually sensitive, very psychically open, very receptive. And so again, we're much more of that way under this energy, particularly if you are that way on the higher end normally. So while everyone's going to feel this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, and everybody will benefit from it in some capacity, I hope, the people that will benefit from it the most, or maybe see more of it or feel it more, I should say, will be the water signs, which are Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, or if you have any points or placements between 22 and 26 degrees of Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, you will be feeling this the strongest. But let me be clear, everyone feels this conjunction and probably already has been feeling it. So you're going to want to look to your birth chart to see which house, which area of life is that Jupiter and Neptune conjunction going to take place, because that would be the area where you may want to do a little extra magical manifestation ritual if you've never done one before, or just put your energy into something that falls in that area of your life, because that's where Jupiter and Neptune can bring you some extra blessings. But I always say with Jupiter, one of my favorite quotes that aligns with Jupiter to me is take one step toward the gods and the gods will take 10 toward you, because Jupiter is known as the king of the gods. Okay, so we have to take the steps to receive those blessings that Jupiter and Neptune would like to bestow upon us. We don't just get them. Sure, in some cases we do, and that's fantastic, but we have to take the steps to get to our faith, to get to what is good for us, to get to what is right for us and what is true for us. And as long as we show our initiative to the divine, to whatever it is that you believe, then yeah, you will have things open up for you. That's just the way that it works. So keep those intentions clear, keep yourself positive and strong, and at the very least, at least look to see where this Jupiter-Neptune alignment is going to be in your birth chart. I've also linked below how you can find and pull up your own birth chart. You can look at the glyph on the bottom there and see where Jupiter and Neptune fall in your chart, and then you would click with transits, and it will show you where Jupiter and Neptune will be transiting for you at the time of this conjunction. And also remember, most importantly, is that we're all much more connected and much more sensitive and much more open and feeding off of one another's energy more than ever before. So be mindful of that as well, and be conscious, be more conscious of who and what you're choosing to surround yourself with, because it's not just what we're feeding ourselves physically, it's what we feed ourselves emotionally every day. It's the way that we think. We sometimes have to retrain our brain out of the negative spaces. And I know that that's not easy, but Jupiter and Neptune can help us with that, because again, Jupiter wants to expand the beautiful things for us, but we have to take the step to show that we're ready for it. And that is how this conjunction works best in our lives. Now, when we're dealing with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, this conjunction for us personally, we want to try to remember to stay connected to the vibration of love and try to have that override the vibration of fear, because the fear vibration is very strong these days, and so is the love vibration, but oftentimes the vibration of fear can take us down. So we want to make sure with this conjunction that we're trying to vibe with that connection to love and not fear, love over fear, which is not always easy to do. But again, this is big for Pisces, and Jupiter and Neptune are going to serve to show us this and blow this energy up, which I think can be really very positive for us. And so if we're looking at something in our life that we want to shift more positively, then this can definitely serve to help us. But we really want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in that vibration of love and of oneness, and of trying to do the right thing and trying to keep ourselves right and really doing all that we can. That's what we can do under this Jupiter and Neptune alignment. Okay, so in order to find where this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction takes place in your chart, you want to follow your rising sign, aka ascendant, because those two words are interchangeable and they mean the same thing. So if you don't know your rising sign, you do need your accurate time of birth in order to obtain that. Check out the tutorial and find your rising sign there. It's represented by the ASC, which stands for ascendant, okay? And long story short, that rising sign actually sets your chart. So it sets the houses in the chart, and it sets the signs on the outside of those houses. And that's very significant, because without an accurate time of birth, we are not going to have an accurate horoscope. And the rising sign, like its name, the rising sign, is what was rising, the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the moment of your birth. And so you will typically appear as your rising sign. Even if you don't think you do, others perceive you that way. That's how they're receiving your energy. And so but more important than that, it does set the chart. So you want to go by your rising sign when looking at the house where this Neptune and Jupiter conjunction will be for you, okay? So if you are an Aries rising, this conjunction will take place in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is the last house of the birth chart, the last house of the wheel, and more importantly, it is the house that's naturally ruled by Pisces, which means it's naturally ruled by both Jupiter and Neptune. So for the Aries rising, this can be a very magical and mystical conjunction alignment for you, where you can be doing a lot of behind the scenes work. You can even be doing spiritual work, energy work, psychic work, going really deep with dream work, anything of that nature that brings you into that altered state of being, altered state of consciousness, not the alcohol, drugs altered state. I'm talking about the spiritual state, which allows you to go into a meditative state to get answers. This is a really awesome alignment for any of that 12th house stuff for the Aries rising. Now, for Taurus rising, this conjunction will take place in your 11th house of groups and networks and friendships. Also, it's the house of the collective energy. So again, for you, if you're putting out any new creative projects or anything having to do with the group, or just even becoming more involved with your friendships or whatever the case may be, this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can really serve you well in those arenas. Gemini rising. This conjunction will take place in your 10th house of career and public image and reputation. So this is a really nice one for the 10th house because it's, we can have people see us the way we want them to see us, but we want to make sure that, again, take one step toward the gods and they'll take 10 steps towards you. You have to put your part in with this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction for every sign. Cancer rising, this alignment will fall in your 9th house of beliefs and philosophy and the higher mind and learning and education and long distance travel. Anything that's future orientated, this conjunction can serve to further your belief system, to make you see things in a completely different way. It's a very intuitive and important place for you to have this alignment, Cancer. Leo rising, this alignment will take place in your 8th house. The 8th house is a very sensitive psychological water house. And so for the Leo risings, you can be really feeling this urge to purge the psychological stuff that's been bogging you down or digging at you, and you really want to get into it and transcend it for the better. Amazing alignment for that for you, for the Leo rising folks, especially if anybody is struggling with some sort of addictive behaviors. Digging into that under this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can be a really constructive way of transcending those behaviors rather than allowing that conjunction to enhance those behaviors. Virgo rising, this conjunction will take place in your 7th house of partnerships and alliances and contracts and mutuality. And so also the 7th house, I have to say, is the house of open enemies. So for the Virgo risings, the alignment here will take place where it involves your relationships. And so this can, again, bring in some really beautiful moments and help you chill out and ease some burdens off your shoulders when using it wisely, Virgo. Libra rising, this conjunction will take place in your 6th house of your health and your daily acts of service and your daily work and your routines. So having the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction here can really help you to enhance these areas. And also, like I said, with the Cancer risings for the 8th house, it can also serve to expand any health related situations that we're dealing with. So if we do have something going on, we want to really watch it around this time, especially if it has to do with any pairs on the body, like the kidneys or the eyes or the ears, because that's Libra, balance, the scales of balance, and the 6th house does have to do with our health. So it could feel extra sensitive. On the positive side, it could be really great for working on something to make it better. Scorpio rising, this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction will take place in your 5th house of romance and fun, but more importantly, your creative projects, Scorpio. So again, and children also is ruled over by the 5th house. So for you, for the Scorpio rising, this can be an excellent time of putting some creative projects out into the world, especially if it has to do with music or the arts or film. Really awesome alignment for that, Scorpio. Or if you have a child in your life that's tuned into that energy, tapped into that energy, this could be really good for them and you can be helping them with that. Or a romantic partner, because the 5th house is also romance. Sagittarius rising, this alignment takes place in your 4th house of the home, of the physical home, of our chosen home, of the people that we love, that we're the closest to. So this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can really serve to enhance those areas of your life and enhance your sensitivities in relation to these areas and people in your life. Capricorn rising, this alignment will take place in your third house of communication and siblings and those that are like our siblings, and also our community and short distance travel. So having this Jupiter and Neptune alignment here can show you where you really want to stretch yourself and go bigger than where you've been going, and not pigeonholing yourself to just all work, 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 and no play. Aquarius rising, this alignment will take place in your second house of finances, resources, self-worth. It's about what we have. So having a Jupiter-Neptune alignment here can make you really want to, go shopping, or really make you want to plead your case with your loved ones, doing something that can help you feel more valuable both to yourself and to others. So you may find this to be a much more emotional time for you than you're prepared to deal with, Aquarius. You may find yourself extra sensitized around this time. Just go with it. And then Pisces rising, you will benefit greatly from this Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, as it is in your first house of the self, of the physical body, of the way we put our energy out into the world. Now, with that, I will give you the shadow side to this energy, since you are a Pisces rising and Jupiter and Neptune are feeling the most enhanced here in the sign of Pisces. So on the shadow side, we want to watch out, when Jupiter transits our first house, and I always tell my clients this, when Jupiter transits the first house, we want to watch for mindless eating, because it's the body, it's the physical body, and Jupiter expands and can make us feel really good. And so it's like, I'll just shove that bag of chips in my mouth and I'll just do more. You're not thinking about it as much as you may have thought about it prior to that transit. So that could be the shadow side to that. It could also be any kind of vice or substance that we're dealing with that could be negatively impacting our bodies, our vessels under that conjunction. And remember, Pisces, you're much more psychically receptive to this energy, so we want to watch out for that. But positively, it can definitely sweeten any type of project you're doing, anything you're really doing. I just feel that this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can really work magic for the Pisces folks out there. So I hope that helped you. There's just a tiny little glimmer of the areas of where this conjunction will touch your chart. But check your chart, see what the degrees are there too. Because if you've got that conjunction falling between the 22nd and 26th degree of Pisces especially, or any of the water signs, really going to feel this one even that much more strongly. And you're definitely going to want to do some sort of ritual, even if that's just as simple as jotting down a couple sentences about what you're wishing to bring in some extra magic into your life.